We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. We are back with some more Star Wars show discussions. We just got Andor released to us this week. I think it was September 21st on Wednesday. We got 3 episodes, which was pretty exciting. You know, we got a lot of content to munch on for a little bit here. I think they're going to be doing 1 episode at a time from now on. I haven't heard anything otherwise yet. But in this video, we're going to cover the main ideas of what happened between those 3 episodes. As Tony mentioned to me before, there's a lot of character development in these 3 episodes, but there are specific storyline elements that are happening that we can cover. So just to kind of kick it off, you know, this is where we're going to start talking about the show. So spoilers. We got 3 main things that are going on with this show, okay? We got 2 things that are happening in present day and 1 thing that's happening as a flashback. The 2 things that are happening in present day, 1, Andor is looking for his sister. This is actually what we kicked the show off with. He's going into, you know, a very iffy looking city. I don't know if I'd call it the ghetto, but it's like a darker tone of Star Wars for where he's at. And he actually enters a brothel, which is interesting, I think, to introduce to Star Wars as well, kind of adding to that adult element. But he's looking for his sister, and he's kind of getting teased by these 2 guys at the brothel. And basically, when he goes to leave, they're continuing to follow him and pick on him, and to the point where he feels threatened. And he, in the mix of defending himself, kills one of them, I believe a little bit on accident, but because things are escalating a little bit, he kills the other guy as well. So from this, Andor is still on the run looking for his sister, but the other main plot that's happening in present day is we get introduced to this new kind of security group. They're not necessarily the Empire, because they keep talking about having to report things to the Empire, but it's kind of like this new like subgroup security group that just handles a certain amount of systems.
They're a security corporation. The Empire hired them to do security.
Yeah, and they don't have jurisdiction over everything. We get a little bit of element with that too, of because they hear about the 2 guys being killed, and they're saying, do we have jurisdiction there, blah 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 blah, and trying to figure out what to do. But those 2 guys were from their group, so they really want to look into it and track down whoever killed the 2 guys from their security group. And so we have this main character. I did not catch his name. Did you guys catch his name?
No.
The dude that's in charge?
Oh, no, I could look it up, though.
So as Tony's looking that up, we got this one guy that's really trying to establish himself as the dude in charge. To a point, I feel like he has some respect from his peers, but not like 100% respect from his peers, because they're all kind of wishy-washy with how they interact with him. But he's like demanding, you know, that they're doing things for him, and he rallies around, I think, about 12 of their men to try to figure out who killed the 2 security guards. And then eventually, as the story path is crossing with Andor, when Andor is looking for his sister, somebody finds out that Andor is the guy that they're looking for, so he rats him out. And then the security group heads down to the planet where Andor is and where he's been hiding, and tries to get him. And we also get another main character that we see from the previews involved with Andor as well. Again, I didn't catch any of these names. I should have done my homework.
I have the IMDb up here if you know anything.
He's the older guy that he met up with later on too.
The buyer.
Oh, it's Stellan Skarsgård, but his name is Luthen Real.
All right, so that's the older guy?
Yeah, that Andor meets up with.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andor had stolen this piece of Imperial technology, and this character wants to buy it from him. But there's more to him than meets the eye to Andor at first. He starts spilling some history that Andor, doesn't tell everybody. And so Andor is intrigued to know what this guy knows. And so by the end of these 3 episodes, he has left with this guy off on an adventure that we don't know yet. Um, so that's kind of the present day stuff of what's going on. Like I said, Andor is trying to find his sister, but in the mix, he kills 2 guys from that the new security group, and they're trying to hunt him down. And basically, they cross paths. Andor gets away, and he's now with the guy that Tony just mentioned. Another somewhat big thing. One of the characters that he's involved with a lot is a new female. I hope she's a lead moving forward. But her like boyfriend dude that ratted him out, he was killed in the process. At least I believe he was killed.
I think so.
A lot of times in Star Wars, people happen to find a way to come back, so that's why I say I think he's killed. But yeah, that's the present day stuff. Some of the flashback stuff, which is, in my opinion, my favorite part of the show so far. We're seeing a lot of Andor's childhood, and he was part of this like tribe of children that they show, and it's like a forest planet, and they see this ship like burning up and falling out of the sky, and a group of them go to check it out. And basically when they get there, there's a bunch of dudes that are yellowed. They look like they would be human normally, but their skin is yellowed. We can see like a yellow gas coming out of the ship. So we know something happened that went wrong with this ship. They check it out. One of the kids in the group ends up getting shot by somebody that was watching what was going on. But ultimately, Andor stays behind even when his group flees, and he's checking out the ship. He's getting angry about all the stuff that's happening. He starts smashing it. But this is when he meets his quote-unquote motherly figure, and a cool new droid that we meet as well, that is, like I said, basically his only family in present day as well. We did not mention that earlier on, but there's a new cool droid. He looks like the droid from Knights of the Old Republic, at least to me. Very different than what we're used to, but not to get too sidetracked. Yeah, he separates with his group, goes off with them. One thing I will point out, I saw this from Star Wars Theory, so check out his channel. He's very, very popular. One thing I didn't notice when we were watching it is that there's these emblems on the people's jackets that were from the crash landing, and those symbols were from the CIS, the Confederacy of Independent Systems. So that is the separatists from the like prequel Clone War era. So that kind of tells you what time frame they are in. We don't really know what they're doing, especially since one of the characters mentions that they're from the Republic, but yet they have these emblems on their shoulders. So I hope we get a little more clarification later on of what that is. Is there anything that you guys wanted to add about the story?
Maybe just that in the flashback, the tribe was very like Lord of the Flies, like they were only kids. There weren't any adults.
Yeah. I don't know if I had wondered if it's kind of like a coming of age / like maturity thing that they're doing, like if there are adults on the island and they have to like live this way and then they become part of the group or something.
Maybe.
But yeah, maybe we'll get more with the flashbacks. I know Andor left, but I'm hoping for a little bit more. So let's talk about what we thought about the episode. One thing that's interesting about our group today is I think we have the 3 types of, 3 points of views, so to speak. One person that really likes it, one person that's kind of in the middle, and one person that wasn't bought into it yet. So Tony, do you want to kick it off for us?
Okay, so I am the person who really liked it. I found this show quite delicious. I'm not gonna be the type of person that says definitively this is what Star Wars should be in terms of like tone and all that stuff and themes and things like that. Um, uh, because I think you can have different. I mean, look at like Clone Wars and Rebels. Like those were really good shows, and there was like comedy and stuff like that in it. So I'm not going to say like every Star Wars thing ever needs to be like dark and gritty and adult. However, personally, this is closer to the type of Star Wars that I like personally. I'll just say this one thing about Obi-Wan and then I'll move on. Tonally, this is what Obi-Wan should have been, in my opinion. Okay. But anyway, so there's that. Moving on.
I would agree.
Yeah. But I love this show. It's just straight up a good show, period. Just from top to bottom. Like the writing was on point. They took their time and developed things. The production design was really good. I appreciate and still think that the volume is a really is at the forefront of movie making and television making these days. But they used a lot more practical sets on this show, and it shows. Um, the music was incredible. Like the last few minutes of episode 3 like really hit me emotionally. The contrasting between Andor and his mother figure. I thought that was very very well done. Like it puts the war back in Star Wars. It's gritty, it's grimy, it's adult, it's dramatic, it's everything that I've been hoping to see in Star Wars for a while. I think why I'm curious what you two might think about this. I feel like why a lot of Star Wars fans like this show is for a couple reasons. First of all, it's just good. I think we all can agree that like most Star Wars fans like Mandalorian, Obi-Wan and Boba Fett were kind of meh. But this show just in its production is good. But also I think why a lot of especially older Star Wars fans like this show so much is it's more in my observation it's more connected with the tone and the vibe of A New Hope and Empire, with the allegory of like I said war and rebellion and fascism and all that stuff. So I think the vibe, the mise en scène is closer to those two than like the prequels or even Jedi, Return of the Jedi is. So I absolutely adored this show. It's just personally it checks all my boxes and it's just good, just straight up. So I'm very excited to see where this goes and the continue, and I'm very excited to see the process of the radicalization of Andor. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, kind of to go back to your point, can you repeat the question that you had asked?
Oh, it wasn't really a question. It was just kind of thought. But would you agree that the vibes of this show are closer to A New Hope and Empire than say Return of the Jedi or the prequels?
Yeah, I would say it's closer to that tone. I feel
Yeah,
like prequels were kind of a little more
campy.
happy-go-lucky.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it's kind of a blend of like Empire / A New Hope tone.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like if those movies were made today, this is probably closer to what we would be getting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Mhm.
Sarah, what did you think?
I'm the one who doesn't like it. I just
All right, I'm out.
it's so boring.
But it's so good. It's so rich and
I'll give you a costume and set design, that's fine, but the overall story, I just feel like it drags. I find myself not looking forward to watching the rest of the episodes because if it wasn't Star Wars, I would have been done after episode 2. I wouldn't have kept watching. That's how bad it is for me.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
I feel like there's not enough action. There's way too much in between things that are actually happening. I appreciate that we got to see how he met Marva, being the motherly figure, right? So kind of having that flashback, but the constant going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, that's something that drove me nuts with Obi-Wan. It's driving me nuts again with this show.
You mean Boba?
Yes. Yes, I mean Boba. Just constantly going back and forth between the two. I was really curious when they were doing the flashbacks. At first I was like, why aren't they doing subtitles? And then I remembered, okay, well, when you have Chewie talking to Han Solo, they don't do subtitles for that. But you kind of get a gist of what he's saying, and you can kind of piece together, I guess, the general idea of what this tribe's saying. But it brought me back to the holiday special, where there's, periods of 5 minutes at a time where you
that is harsh. Whoa.
I told Jeremy I'm not holding back.
Fine, I won't hold back either. Finish your thought.
You haven't before, and I wouldn't expect anything different. No, it's totally fine. I'm waiting for the meat of the show. Every episode I'm waiting for, like, what's the big thing that's going to happen? And I just feel like we never get there. It's all just little itty bitty, tiny little sentimental details that don't really add up to a big event that happened. The one thing that I will agree with you on the most, I think, was your very last statement of curious how we get to see Cassian change over to be like the person that we know from the movie, from Rogue One, because that's very different from how he is right now. Right now, he's kind of, scared or unsure of himself and not really sure what's going on. He's not the person that we know him to be yet. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But that's really about the only thing I got going for me in this show right now. That and the robot. I think the robot's cool.
I'm going to tell you one thing that you told me before when we watched Mando, because I had all these theories of what was going to happen. You can't have the biggest thing right away, because then you have nothing else to build up to. So you can't have some like massive action battle quite yet.
Not what I meant. I just mean like like in the first episode when he killed those 2 guys, that was something big and eventful. I don't feel like we really had that in the second episode, and we only half had that in the third one when they escaped. That's more or less what I mean by something exciting in the episode. Not just filler content, which is what I feel like most of it's been. Go ahead.
And in the other corner, Tony.
No, you go. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. You go.
So I'm the person that's kind of in between. So watching this show, I thought, the first thing that I looked at before we even watched it was the timestamps, because I was just curious right away what we were going to get out of it. And so I was really excited when I saw like 40 minutes for the second and third, and it was a little bit more for the first one, I think. I thought we were going to get a lot of nice, juicy content. I would say we did to a degree, but I don't think it would take that much time to cover what they did. I'm kind of a little bit backtracked as far as when Tony said, they had a lot of time to develop the characters. I feel like they could have done it a little bit faster. I would say I would disagree with the flashback, the way that they're doing it. I felt like in Boba, it was a little iffy for me just because I felt that the flashbacks were slightly uninteresting, depending on which one it was, of course. But I thought the way they're doing it now, I think it's working out pretty well. I think the stuff that they're hitting with the flashbacks is just important enough to show. Like, they're not wasting time with flashbacks. So I think the way that they're doing those is pretty well done. The sets are amazing. They are not using the big screen nearly as much as they've used it for Mando and Kenobi. These things feel flushed out. There's a lot of people involved. Like, it's not just one or two people on the screen all the time. So that's another cool thing that we get with this show that really makes it feel, I don't know if real is the word, but maybe more authentic to what these places would look like.
More immersive.
Yeah,
You want a real fancy word that you can use?
sure.
This show oozes verisimilitude.
Oh, wow. I don't know
Yeah.
if I could repeat that one, but
Okay.
what Tony said.
Yeah.
Um, one of the cool things that I enjoyed seeing in this show that I saw for the preview, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Is the guy that's like banging on the like church bell, quote unquote, like Times Square thing. That was really cool to see what that actually was in the show. Basically, when there's danger, from what I gather, the city bangs on different instruments that everybody has, and that kind of tells people like, oh, something's happening.
That I thought was interesting or neat, especially when they showed Marva, trying to play mind games with the guy that was in the house. But how does that tie to the guy with the bell? Or the guy that had the headphones on that
I think he's
drum or
kind
whatever
I
it
think
is.
he's kind of like the hourly guy, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
city
he's
itself has
clock, yeah.
yeah, where they have their own banging going on.
So is the only purpose of the guy with the drum just to show you that another hour's gone by?
Yeah.
It could be.
I mean, as far as what they've shown us, yeah.
I mean, that's how it works in real life too.
I get that. They emphasized it so much in the previews. I thought it would be something more important than just a timestamp.
I will say I didn't hardly get any of this from the previews, so they did a good job with the preview as far as like showing you just enough to maybe pull you in for the show. But with me being in the middle, the ultimate reason why I'm kind of in the middle is that Star Wars can't all be the same exact I don't want to say tone, but it can't be like the same exact style maybe for every single show. And so when I got this, and after episode 2, Sarah and I both looked at each other like, wow. I mean, there's a lot of walk and talk going on. What are we going to get from episode 3? And then we watched it, and we got a little bit more in that episode, of course. But it feels more, I guess, like Tony said, more character development. And I think that's what kind of, it's almost like jet lag, I think, for myself. We're used to seeing these Star Wars shows where they kind of just jump right into things. And this one has dialed it back a bit. And I feel that maybe I just need to get used to it. So that's why I haven't necessarily given up. But I am intrigued to know what's happening moving forward, especially since we haven't even hit the Empire yet. We know that Andor gets really, really mad at the Empire. So, we've seen what happened with this little security group. It makes me wonder what's going to happen on a larger scale when he starts getting involved with the Imperials, especially since they've already ordered, I think, season 2 and season 3. So they are definitely confident in this show, which means that I should be confident.
Did they do season 2 and season 3? Because I thought the show was going to go directly up to Rogue One.
It's supposed to. You mean like this season?
Yeah.
I don't think this season's going directly up to it. I know they've officially greenlit season 2, but when they've interviewed people, there was talks that they originally planned for 5, but then they shrank it down to 3.
Okay.
So we got that to look forward to. Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the show so far. Like I said, I'm very indecisive, but optimistic. Did you guys want to say anything more now that I've said my piece?
I know that my opinion's not very popular because we watch a lot of other channels talk about the show and stuff, and they all seem to love it too. But I'm just not seeing what everybody else is seeing.
Let me ask you this, okay? And I'm not trying to poke any buttons, so please don't take it this way, anybody that's watching. But we've watched House of Dragon, which is very different than Star Wars. We've also
Watch that
watched
too.
we watched part of the first episode of Rings of Power.
I am one episode behind on that.
I say, which show would you rather watch, Andor or Rings of Power?
Oh, I don't get to pick House of Dragon?
No, we already know that you like that one. Both of us walked
Whoa,
away.
whoa. Hold on. Hold on. You like House of the Dragon, but you don't like Andor?
Yes.
I'm not sold 100% yet.
Oh, but House of the Dragon is like even more walking and talking and character development and
People
all
are
that
getting
stuff.
killed left and right all the time.
I'm just saying, Damon is a strong character. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, give me that popcorn, buddy.
Okay, anyway, go on.
So far for me in this show, the droid has that effect. And it's not quite.
To answer your question, I would pick Andor, but only because I actually know and recognize at least one of the characters, being Cassian. Whereas with Rings of Power, I don't really recognize anybody. I had kind of put together a couple things of like, oh, this is so-and-so just way earlier, like when they're a kid or whatever it is. But I'm not familiar enough with Lord of the Rings to know it like I know Star Wars.
I tried to help her. I'm just saying.
Well, saying this is whoever
Lord of the Rings is a dense show.
There's lots of people.
I don't remember people's names to remember who they are.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that's what I would pick and why.
Gotcha.
Oh.
That's good to know because you didn't like that show.
Were you asking me too, or just her?
Well, I knew we weren't the biggest fans of Rings of Power, so that's why I was wondering, is she more or less watching Andor just because she has to? Or, would she actually go back to it as opposed to Rings of Power? We really haven't made it past probably 35 minutes.
I was serious in my statement of I wouldn't have made it past episode 2 of this show if it wasn't Star Wars.
Oh, which kind of goes to another point I wanted to make in this video. I think Disney did the smart move. Like, I was a little upset that they pushed the show back 3 more weeks so that we could get 3 episodes up front. But I think it was the right move. I think if they would have released the first episode on its own, I think the media and whatnot would be a little more in question of, what's happening with this show. So good on them for recognizing that they should put 3 episodes out.
All right. Can I respond now?
Yeah, you can rebuttal.
Okay. So first of all, before I say this, like, much love to you two. No disrespect. I'm just saying my thoughts because that's why I'm here. But when I was watching this show, one of the thoughts that did cross my mind was I don't feel like more how should I say this? I'll put it this way. I think as a society, we have forgotten how to consume stories and appreciate the art form of storytelling. Because I don't care if a story is told through actions, through words, through music, whatever. A good story is a good story. And I felt that even though, yes, there wasn't a ton of action and stuff in this show, the dialogue and the conversations that were being had still kept me hooked because it was I thought pretty much all the dialogue advanced the story and gave you insights into characters and who they are and all that stuff, so that when the big things happen, you feel a lot more for these characters. And coincidentally, I would also partially put the blame at Disney and Star Wars for giving people that impression that everything is just you speed run through a story to get to the boom bang pow, because they are guilty of that very much. But I found the story, at least so far, it's incredibly moving and emotional, and I was hooked, like, on every word that the characters were saying. The performances carried the words as well. you know, seeing the darker side of this universe and people just kind of scrapping to get by. And I won't go too much into contemporary politics, but Star Wars is no stranger to social commentary, and I think seeing the rise of a fascist regime, kind of, and I think that one leader officer kind of represents that, how he's willing to accept and to fall into line to like total totalitarianism. You know, you could argue like that's kind of happening today, whatever, blah blah blah. So I, you know, I make that connection there. You know, whether they intended to or not, I don't know, but that's kind of my lens of it. And seeing that play out is, I find, like I said, very powerful and very moving. And I just think because I'm kind of looking through the show kind of in that lens mostly, I think that's perhaps why I'm getting so much enjoyment out of it.
What way did you watch the show? Like on the TV or on your phone?
Yeah, TV.
Okay. Do you think that has any input at all as to why you haven't liked some of the previous shows? Because you usually would watch it on your phone when you were doing dishes or other things. And being on the TV, you're able to really get invested in this one?
Perhaps. So with what I typically like to do is, for shows at least, is I definitely make sure to watch the first one or two episodes on the TV. And that kind of gives me a good idea of what the show is going to be like. And if it hooks me enough, then I'll be like, okay, this show is worth sitting down and actually watching it. Where
It's
some
worthy of
shows
the
I'm kind of,
couch.
huh?
It's worthy of the couch.
Is worthy of the couch, yes. But sometimes I do that and I'm like, okay, this is a show I can just kind of passively watch. But the marketing of this show made me think that this was a couch worthy show. So you know, I started it as such, and it lived up to it. So yeah.
It's also worthy of the fancy lights that he has on his TV.
Yes. Yes.
I can say, in response to what you said about the show, I can definitely respect that. And I think from that point of view, the show is probably a bit more enjoyable. And also, like you said, I think Disney probably nurtured us into thinking Star Wars is one way when you look at it from a structure point of view of what it started with. It's very, very different, especially with the sequel trilogy, because they started, you know, with something that had a plan, and then they got to The Last Jedi and things got changed around, and then they went back to the guy that was in the first one, and when he did the ninth movie, it was exactly what you said, you know, just get straight to the action every single time because we have 2.5 hours. Whereas this show, you know, they can flush things out over the span of the season. So
well, and it seems like the show is actually thought out as well.
Yeah, they took advice. Yeah, I think they really, well, from what I read in some interviews, the guy that made Rogue One, I think he like made this basically himself and then just pitched it, kind of a thing. So it's nice to have that organic storytelling from the guy that created, you know, cast characters. So I'm glad he's in charge, and they just didn't give it to something at Lucasfilm.
Yes,
could have been very different.
Yeah, and I don't remember if this is the same guy that you mentioned, but he was the director of these first 3 episodes. And I just saw like a quick clip of an interview with him on Twitter, and and like we just said, the way he was talking about the show, I was like, oh my gosh, he actually sat down and took 30 seconds to actually think through this show, you know, beginning, middle, and end. And he sounded very articulate. He made connections to history as to justify some of the choices in this show. And I was like, okay, there it is. I'm sold. I'm in. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
somebody that actually did their homework, which is
Yeah.
nice. One other thing that we should probably mention is that this show is structured also in a way where they're like time periods. So this first set of episodes is one time period, and then are they in threes? Is there a possibility of
Yeah,
doing
it's in
more
threes. Yeah.
in threes? Okay, so like the
3
next
episodes
three,
is one arc.
yeah. So our next 3 weeks will be another time period. Uh, is there 12 episodes for this show?
I think it's 12. Yeah.
So we got like 4 different time periods that'll be happening. So
You mean like 5-year spans or something?
I don't
Yeah.
know
So
about
the
5.
next episode there will be a time jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know how drastic it'll be, but it will be a time jump.
Gotcha.
So that's another thing to keep in mind about this show too, because we got a whole time period in one sitting. I'm wondering how the show will hold up week to week, spreading out those time frames as well. Kind of like I feel like side note, we had like a movie night where we were watching Boba with some buddies that hadn't seen it yet. And when we watched them back to back to back, I felt like I enjoyed it more than it was week to week to week. I know a lot of people are saying that about Kenobi now too, where they're going back and just straight running it, and it's a lot better. So I'm really hoping that the writing is strong enough to make it so that the week to weeks are just as enjoyable as
Yeah,
straight.
and they're writing the show as a show and not writing a movie as a show.
Right,
Which is
exactly.
what I feel like Boba and Obi-Wan was.
Obi-Wan was definitely, that's confirmed that
Yes.
that happened. So yeah, I think that's a good point to make. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I think I'm good for now.
We'll see what happens next week.
We're
See
still
what
letting
happens.
it marinate a little bit. I feel like even though it's a long amount of time, I think I might rewatch those first 3 episodes before we watch the next one on Wednesday. They are coming out on Wednesdays, right? They're not shifting that to
Yeah.
Friday.
Pretty sure.
Cool. So yeah, we'll watch it on Wednesday, and then we'll regroup, talk about it on next weekend, and we'll see if Sarah rebounds a little bit. I'm excited. I am
Watch
excited.
show up
Trying to
next.
keep in mind.
Watch I show up next week and absolutely hate the episode.
Everybody's just changed their opinions. Rotate one
Yes.
plot point. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yep.
But so that's the end of this video. We covered the first 3 episodes in this discussion of Andor.
Oh, sorry. Can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Hey, Star Wars fans out there, listen up. All right. So, talking to you toxic fans especially. All right. Listen, I disagree with these two people on this show to varying degrees, but all film is subjective. And I don't think any less of them. I don't think they're dumb because they have a different opinion than I do. Okay. So if you disagree with somebody and you talk down to them, you're not a Star Wars fan. There.
Amen.
I said it. So
And we appreciate your opinion too, Tony.
yes, thank you.
I was, like I said, I touched on it a little bit, but like when you went into your point of view, it definitely gave me a little different respect / lens to see the show, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So yeah. Next week, look forward to episode 4 discussion. We will make sure to have that out sometime over the weekend. But otherwise, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on Andor's first 3 episodes. Anything that you thought we didn't talk about that was important, let us know. And then as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.